though freedom is never really free, we yearn and strive for government protecting our liberty.
All in this Commonwealth together. And I also know that so many of you serve in your own town governments, your communities, and as a person who has served in town government and the planning board as the town meeting moderator, I wanted to just share with you my own reflection tonight in view of the circumstances in Boston on Monday. This story has informed my own strong views, my strongly held views about the Second Amendment and the fundamental freedoms to protect your family and your freedom by the Second Amendment. In 1990, I was on the town planning board, was the chairman of the town planning board in the town of Norfolk, and there was a developer that had not complied with the zoning, and he basically was trying to bully his way through to an approval, and I happened to be the guy that was the chairman that year, so I had the good fortune of having the gavel. And a bunch of bad things started happening to us when the project wasn't going through. I was a newlywed, and I had just bought the first brand new car of my entire life for my wife. My first brand new car. So proud. It was a red, fire engine red Jeep Cherokee. And I came out after a planning board meeting one night, and somebody had taken a knife and gone up and down the length of the vehicle on both sides and punctured all 4 tires. And then a week later, somebody dumped roofing nails in my driveway of my home to try to intimidate us. Somebody wrote a letter to my wife, we were newlyweds, saying, "Dear Susan, Daniel and I are having an affair. You're so lucky to have him." Now, my wife looks at this letter, just to give you a sense of what an amazing woman I'm married to. She looks at this letter, and she says, she reads it, and it's loaded with typographical errors, and she says, "You'd never sleep with a woman who couldn't spell." And then somebody smashed the picket fence in front of my house with a truck. Just a bunch of bad things started happening to our family. And to make it more stressful for us, my wife was pregnant with our first baby. And you know, and if you think back to your first child, you know, just it's a time when you're newlywed, how scary it is. And then in July of 1990, somebody smashed in the back window of my kitchen of my house and lit a fuse and threw in a fragmentation bomb and blew up my house. And my wife and I were at work, thankfully. It was not a survivable incident, but you can just imagine what I was thinking on Monday, you know, when I was seeing what happened in Boston, because I've actually experienced that. I've actually experienced the terror of that kind of an attack on somebody and how random that attack is. And I came flying home. My wife had gotten home before me. That's how I knew about it. She was in shock. We were really worried. It was a terrible time. Ultimately, they were not able to prove a case before the statute of limitations expired, but they were able ultimately to prove a case against the fellow who did it. And justice was ultimately served. What was his reason? He was trying to bully democracy. So I actually received a civil rights injunction from the Superior Court under the civil rights law, because I have a First Amendment freedom, a constitutional liberty, to do my duty as an elected official, to follow the law. And that's all I did, by the way. I had taken an oath to follow the law, and I applied the law as an elected official on behalf of the town. By the way, the town supported me. As you know, for zoning, it takes 2/3 vote of the town to get zoning through. And my wife and I couldn't stay in our house for a while because it was just uninhabitable. And we came back. Let me tell you about small towns in New England. Let me tell you about small towns in Massachusetts. We came back to our house, a young couple. We were frightened. Every window in my house that had been blown out was repaired by neighbors. I have no idea who did it. To this day, I have no idea. Everything that was blown open was secured. People stepped up. They cleaned up the glass for us. This is neighbors. This is the best of New England. And so the Boston Globe and the newspapers asked me if I was going to quit, if I was going to resign the board and to leave town. And the Worcester Telegram and the Gazette wrote a beautiful editorial. It was such a boost to us at the time, called Standing Tall, because I said that I will never allow a bomber to interfere with the workings of government. And I will never allow a bomber to interfere with democracy. That's what I said back in 1990. And we paused the campaign on Monday and Tuesday and today in respect for the people who were killed and hurt. But this is democracy. This is our duty as a free country to come together as Americans, to sort through our vision for our future collectively, to be able to say that our country, it's the people, the majority rule, not a bomber, not some self-appointed member of a minority view, not violence, not force. Democracy is the greatest gift of freedom that we all have, and by being here today, I wanted to send a message that I am proud to participate in the democratic process with you. And that's why I wanted to be here today to be with you. I want to say that I am proud to be seeking the Republican nomination for the United States Senate. I'm proud because I'm proud to be a Republican in Massachusetts. Now, the people tell us that we have to rebrand the Republican Party. Now, we've lost a lot of elections. We've got to rebrand the Republican Party. That's what they tell us. Now, I disagree that we have to rebrand. I'm proud to be a member of the Party of Lincoln. I am proud to reflect what we believe and to campaign on what we believe. And what we believe is the power of freedom. We believe in the individual. We believe in responsibility, and we believe in opportunity. And we're not going to be the grand old party, not if we want to connect to relate to be relevant to the majority of American voters. We know that the American voters for the rest of their, at least my life, is going to be women, millennials, and new Americans. We know that. And I don't focus on those few things that divide us. I focus on those so many more things that unite us as Americans and as Republicans. And what we have that unites us are our principles: growth, opportunity, prosperity. That's what GOP means. Growth, opportunity, and prosperity. And we're not the grand old party. We are the great opportunity party. And we will take that message to every person in the majority, and we will win in June. We will win. I've put different plans on the table. My priority is to grow jobs. And I put a plan on the table to create jobs. Everybody says they want jobs. I want to tell you how. I put a plan on the table to reduce the cost of a college education. Everybody says they want to reduce the cost of an education. I'm going to tell you how. You look at my website for the details. And I also will advocate for vocational education, because I believe that not everybody can be a success through college, but everybody can be a success by finding the trade or the occupation that gives them pleasure and gives them satisfaction and lets them live a productive life. Now, when I grew up in western Massachusetts, my dad was an antenna repairman, and he formed a small business when we were kids, my 3 younger brothers and me. And my mom is a first-generation Italian-American, and she came here. She's a registered nurse. And my mom believes that education is the path to the American dream, that education is the great equalizer in our society, and I believe that to my core. And my brothers and I, we worked our whole lives to try to work our way through school. When I was in high school, I worked as a house painter, and my boss was an old German guy, and he said, "Dan, always remember the forgets." I said, "Remember the forgets? What are you talking about?" And he said, "Get in, get fast, get good, get lost." And it's good advice for politics as it is for paint. In college, by the way, in college, I worked as a carpenter. I worked my way through college as a carpenter. I built roof trusses and I framed up houses. I was a lousy date in college because I would always take my date on a Friday night to look at all the houses we framed up in the subdivision to see how great it was. And then in law school, I graduated, by the way, from college with high honors, magna cum laude, and I had great grades. I could have had any internship I wanted. I chose to work as a laborer my first summer after law school because I love to work with my hands. I love to fix things. I love to solve things. I like to create things, and it's that same love of problem solving that I've taken with me into public life. And I've worked in all 3 branches of government, as a judge, as the chief counsel to the governor when we had a budget deficit of $3 billion and we turned it into a surplus. And I've worked now in the House, in Scott Brown's old House seat, and I solve problems in these jobs, but I don't have these jobs to have them. I have these jobs to get something done. In everything I've done, I've accomplished something of consequence, and I hope to be able to take those same skills, that same problem solving, and to bring that passion, to bring that fire, to bring that innovation and new ideas and new thinking with me down to Washington, because that's what we need in America right now. We don't need the same old thinking and the same old outcomes and the same old approaches to these problems. We got to have new thinking. We got to have new thinking. And people ask me why I'm an optimist about this race. And I say, well, I'm an optimist for two reasons. One, I'm a Republican in Massachusetts. It makes me an optimist, by definition. But two, the reason I'm an optimist is that I know that every challenge that we face as a country, every problem that we confront as a Commonwealth, the solution lies within each and every one of us, and that is the power of the American spirit. We are Americans. We're not an ethnicity. We are a concept. And that, by the way, is what this bomber doesn't understand. We are Americans. We are the can-do country. We're the growers, the builders, the entrepreneurs, the doers. That's who we are. That's who we are. And if we can simply free up the American spirit from the regulation and the taxation and the limitations on our freedom that we've imposed on ourselves, we will do it again. And this person, whoever it was with the Boston Marathon, doesn't understand the American spirit, because the American spirit grows stronger with adversity. We grow together when we're attacked. And the strength of America is not in us all being the same, but precisely because we're different. And it's those differences that we celebrate, joined together by our love of freedom, by our love of our shared humanity, and by our love of our democratic principles, our constitutional democracy. I just want to say one thing before I part company with you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. I promise you only one thing in this race. I promised you just one thing. That if you give me the chance to stand up on your behalf on that stage against Ed Markey, if he's the nominee, or Steve Lynch, but against the Democratic nominee, if you give me that chance, I promise you that you will always be proud of the day that you gave me that opportunity and that gave me your vote. I ask for your support, I ask for your vote, and I ask for your prayers. Thank you very much.
Oh, let us all unite to yearn and strive for our republic that reflects our values, that preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might, that reflects our values and preserves our rights, and goes forth in power and might.